Hey friends, welcome to the Time for Living podcast, your ultimate guide to reclaiming the time you need to crush your biggest goals while still having time to live your one beautiful life. I'm your host, Lucy Clark, a devoted boy mum, dedicated business owner, and time freedom expert. Say goodbye to the I'm too busy mindset that's holding you back from achieving what matters most to you. No more feeling overwhelmed or stuck in the same place year after year. Every week, we'll dive deep into strategies for being intentional with your precious time so you can hit those ambitious goals while still making time for yourself and your family. If you're ready to create more time, get practical tips, and prioritize the steps that will make the biggest impact on your career and life, then you're in the right spot. Pop in your earbuds, steal a quiet moment, and let's find time together. Hey there, my friend. Welcome back to Time for Living. I'm so excited to be here with you. Or if this is your first time here on Time for Living, welcome to our little corner of the internet where we talk about actually having time in our lives to fulfill our dreams while still crushing it at work. And I have to tell you, after last week's episode about the weekly planning Sunday CEO session, I got so many messages in my inbox that I had to record another one of my Real Talk episodes. If you haven't already listened to last week's episode, check it out, episode 49. It's a good one. You all had so many thoughtful questions, and honestly, some of them made me realize I needed to address the real messy parts of implementing this system that I probably glossed over a bit. Because here's the thing, and I know you're thinking this too, it's one thing to hear about a planning system that sounds amazing in theory, and it's completely another thing to try to implement it when your boss is scheduling back-to-back meetings, your kids need help with homework, and you're already feeling like there aren't enough hours in the day. So today, I'm answering your most pressing questions about the Sunday CEO session. And I'm going to be completely honest about the challenges you're going to face and how to work through them. Because I don't want you to try this system, hit a roadblock, and then think it doesn't work, or that you're somehow failing at it. The truth is, shifting from reactive mode to strategic mode isn't just about learning a new planning technique. It's about changing how you think about your time, your priorities, and honestly, your worth. And that takes practice. So let's dive into your questions, and I promise by the end of this episode, you're going to feel so much more confident about making this work in your actual, real, sometimes chaotic life. All right, let's start with the most common question I got. I tried the 10-minute mini CEO session, but I still feel overwhelmed. What am I doing wrong? Okay, first, you're not broken or doing anything wrong. If you felt overwhelmed, honestly, that makes total sense. You've probably been in reactive mode for so long that even thinking about planning strategically feels like just one more thing on your already overwhelming list. And here's what I want you to know. Feeling overwhelmed during your first few planning sessions is completely normal. It's actually a good sign because it means you're starting to see how much you've been trying to juggle without a clear system. But let me give you a specific adjustment that's going to help. Instead of trying to identify outcomes for your entire week, I want you to start even smaller. Pick one day. Let's say Wednesday. Sit down and ask yourself, what's the one thing that would make Wednesday feel successful? Not 3 things, not 5 things, one thing. Then ask yourself, what's one small action I can take Wednesday morning to move forward with that outcome? Write that down. That's it. That's your entire planning session for now. Here's why this works. When you're feeling overwhelmed, your brain is telling you that everything is equally urgent and important. But that's not exactly true. There's always one thing that if you accomplished it, would give you the most relief or forward momentum. Start there. And here's something I didn't mention last week that I should have. During your first few weeks of doing this, you might feel worse before you feel better. That's because you've become aware of how scattered your approach has been. But stick with it, because that awareness is actually the first step towards real change. The second question I got a lot was, how do I handle weeks when everything feels urgent and I can't identify just 2 to 3 outcomes? Oh, I feel that one in my bones. We've all had those weeks where it feels like you're spinning your wheels and everything needs to happen yesterday. But here's what I want you to consider. When everything feels urgent, usually nothing actually is. What's happening is you're in survival mode. and survival mode makes terrible strategic decisions. So when you're facing one of these weeks, I want you to try what I call the emergency room triage approach. In an emergency room, they don't treat everyone in the order they arrive. They assess who actually needs immediate attention to prevent serious consequences. And here's how you apply this to your week. Make a list of everything that feels urgent. Then, for each item, ask yourself, what actually happens if this doesn't get done this week? Not what you're afraid might happen, but what will realistically happen. Most of the time, you'll realize that the consequences aren't actually as severe as your stressed out brain is telling you they are. Maybe someone would be mildly annoyed, or you'd need to have a conversation to reset expectations, but the world wouldn't end. The few things that would give genuine negative consequences if you don't handle them, those become your 2 to 3 outcomes for the week. Everything else gets scheduled for the following week or gets delegated if possible. And here's something that might feel counterintuitive. The weeks when everything feels urgent are actually when you need the Sunday CEO session the most. Because when you're in reactive mode, you make decisions based on whoever is loudest or whatever feels most stressful in the moment, not what actually moves your life forward. Next question. What if I plan my week perfectly on Sunday, but by Tuesday everything has fallen apart? First, let me just say, if you're someone whose plans consistently fall apart by Tuesday, you're definitely not alone. And you're also probably someone who's really good at creating detailed, optimistic plans that don't account for reality. Here's the thing about planning. The goal isn't to create a schedule that never happens. The goal is to create a framework that helps you make better decisions when things inevitably do change. So let's talk about why plans fall apart. Usually it's one of 3 reasons. First, you planned like you were going to have perfect conditions all week. You didn't account for the fact that you might feel tired on Wednesday, or that your energy levels change throughout the week, or that other people are going to have requests and emergencies. Second, you tried to pack too much in. When we're planning, we tend to be overly optimistic about how long things will take and how much energy we'll have. Third, you didn't build in those strategic buffers I talked about last week. Here's what I want you to try instead. When you're doing your Sunday CEO session, plan for about 70% of your available time. Yes, you heard me right. Only plan for 70% of your time. The other 30% is for life happening. The unexpected phone call, the project that takes longer than expected, the day when you just need to move a little slower. And here's another strategy. Every Wednesday, do a midweek mini check-in. It takes 3 minutes. Look at what you planned for the rest of the week and ask, based on how this week is actually going, what needs to adjust? Maybe you need to move Friday's big task to next week because something urgent came up. Maybe you're ahead of schedule and can tackle something extra. The point is you're staying strategic instead of just letting the week happen to you. This next question is so important. I love the idea of protecting my peak energy, but my boss schedules meetings whenever they want. How do I actually control my calendar? Going to be really honest with you here. If you're in a role where you have zero control over your calendar, this is going to be harder, but it's not impossible, and you have more influence than you think you do. First, let's talk about what you can control. If you can't control when meetings get scheduled, you can control how you prepare for them and what to do in the time between them. If you know your peak energy is 9 till 11 a.m., but you regularly get meetings scheduled then, can you do some prep work the night before so you're not scrambling in those peak hours? Can you use the 15 minutes before a meeting to tackle one of those tiny wins we talked about? Second, most bosses are more flexible than we assume they are, but they're not mind readers. Have you actually said to your boss, I do my best strategic work in the mornings. Is there any flexibility around when we schedule our weekly one-on-ones? You might be surprised. The worst they can say is no, but you might discover they're open to working with your natural rhythms, especially if you frame it in terms of how it will help you do better work. And here's something else to consider. Even if you can't protect your peak energy at work, you can absolutely protect it in your personal life. If you're sharpest in the morning, maybe that's when you meal plan or tackle that personal project you've been putting off, or do something that feeds your soul instead of immediately checking email. The point is, start with what you can control and gradually expand from there. Another question I got was, the strategic buffers sound great in theory, but my weeks are already packed. Where do I find this extra time? I totally get this. When you're already feeling like there aren't enough hours in the day, the idea of blocking out time for nothing specific can feel impossible. But here's the thing about these buffers. They're not extra time you magically find. Think of them more like insurance for your sanity. They're the difference between having a week where one unexpected thing completely derails you versus having a week where you can handle whatever comes up and still make progress on what matters. Think about it this way. You probably already have buffers in your week, you just don't realize it. How much time do you spend each week dealing with things you could have prevented with better planning? How much time do you spend stressed and spinning because you're trying to squeeze too much in? Strategic buffers actually create time by preventing the chaos that happens when you're constantly behind. But practically speaking, here's how to find them. Look at your current schedule and identify the transition times. The 15 minutes between meetings where you usually scroll your phone. The 30 minutes on Sunday evening where you're dreading Monday. The time you spend overthinking decisions because you're rushing. Turn those pockets of time into intentional buffers. And remember, a buffer doesn't have to be a big block of time. Even 15 minutes between tasks can give you space to breathe and recalibrate instead of running from one thing to the next. Number 6. This question really hit me. I keep falling back into reactive mode by Wednesday. How do I stay consistent with this approach? First, I want to normalize this for you. Changing from reactive to strategic thinking is like building a muscle. You wouldn't expect to go to the gym once and suddenly be able to lift heavy weights. This is the same thing. You've probably been operating in reactive mode for years. Your brain is literally wired to respond to whatever feels most urgent or stressful. Rewiring that takes time and repetition. Here's what I want you to try. Set a reminder on your phone on Wednesday at 2 p.m. When it goes off, ask yourself, am I acting like the CEO of my life right now, or am I letting my day run me? If you realize you've slipped into reactive mode, that's not failure, that's data. Notice it, be kind to yourself about it, and then ask, what's one thing I can do right now to get back on track? Maybe it's looking at your outcomes for the week and remembering what you actually want to accomplish. Maybe it's taking 5 minutes to reorganize your Thursday priorities based on how Wednesday actually went. The goal isn't to never slip back into reactive mode. The goal is to notice it faster and course correct more quickly. And here's something that might help. Reactive mode usually kicks in when we're overwhelmed or when we've lost sight of our bigger picture. If you find this happening consistently, it might be a sign that you need to simplify your outcomes even more, or that you need to reconnect with why these priorities matter to you in the first place. Okay, the last question. What counts as a strategic outcome versus just a task? I'm still confused about the difference. This is such a good question, and honestly, this is where most people get stuck because we're so used to thinking in terms of tasks. Here's the difference. A task is something you do. An outcome is something that exists as a result of what you do. So instead of send proposal to client, that's a task, a strategic outcome would be client has everything they need to make a decision about working with us. Do you see the difference? The outcome is about the result you want to create, not just the action you want to take. Here's another example. Instead of clean out closet, which is the task, the outcome might be, I feel confident about my wardrobe choices and mornings feel easier. When you think in terms of outcomes, it opens up possibilities. Maybe cleaning out your entire closet isn't actually necessary to feel confident about your wardrobe. Maybe you just need to organize what you wear most often. Outcomes keep you focused on what you actually want to achieve, not just what you think you should be doing. And here's a quick test. When you write down your weekly outcomes, ask yourself, so what? After each one. If you can't answer why that outcome matters to you or how it moves your life forward, it's probably still a task disguised as an outcome. Oh, and here's one more thing I want to address because I got several messages about this. What if Sunday doesn't work for my schedule? Do I have to do this on Sunday? Absolutely not. I call it the Sunday CEO session because that's when most people have a natural transition into their week, but the day matters way less than the consistency. Some of my most successful clients do their weekly planning on Friday afternoons. Actually, this can work really well because you're already in work mode. You have a clear sense of what happened during the week and you can transition into weekend mode knowing next week is handled. So if you're someone who already does a Friday afternoon brain dump, you know, that thing that will get everything out of your head before the weekend, this is the perfect time to add your strategic planning. Spend 5 minutes doing your brain dump. then spend 10 minutes thinking strategically about the week ahead. Other clients prefer Saturday mornings with their coffee, or even Monday mornings before everyone else wakes up. The key is picking a time when you can think clearly and won't be interrupted. And here's another option that works really well for busy schedules. You can split it into 2 separate sessions. Maybe you do your weekly review on Friday afternoon when you're wrapping up your work week. That's when you're most aware of what worked and what didn't. Then do your planning part on Sunday evening or Monday morning when you're ready to think about the week ahead. This actually works beautifully because your weekly review on Friday helps you mentally close out the week, and then your planning session feels fresh and forward-focused instead of trying to do both at the same time when you might be tired. What matters is that you're consistent about it. Your brain needs to know this is happening regularly so it can start thinking more strategically throughout the week. So don't get hung up on the day or doing it all at once. Pick whatever works for your schedule and stick with it. The magic isn't in Sunday, it's in the strategic thinking. Okay, before we wrap up, I want to give you the reality check that I wish someone had given me when I first started thinking strategically about my time. Listen, I'm going to be real with you for a second. This isn't some magic fix where you do it once and suddenly your life is perfectly organized. That's not how any of this works. You're definitely going to have weeks where you feel like you're failing at it. But here's what I want you to remember. Every single high-achieving woman I know has to learn how to think strategically about her time. It's not a natural talent some people have and others don't. It's a skill you develop. And the women who master this skill, who genuinely feel in control of their time and energy, they all have one thing in common. They didn't wait until they felt ready or until their lives got less busy. They started where they were, with what they had, and they got better over time. So if you tried the mini CEO session last week and it didn't feel perfect, that's completely normal. If you're still feeling overwhelmed, that doesn't mean this approach doesn't work. It means you're human and you're learning something new. The key is keep practicing, keep showing up for those 10 to 15 minutes on Sunday. Keep asking yourself strategic questions instead of just reacting to whatever feels loudest. Because here's what I know about you. You didn't accidentally end up in a demanding role. You're capable of strategic thinking. You do it at work all the time. Now you just need to start applying that same strategic mindset to your own life. I know a lot of you downloaded the Strategic Week template after last week's episode. First of all, way to go for taking action. Keep using it and really lean into those weekly reviews we talked about. That's where the real insights happen. And if you didn't, don't worry. I know you're ready to stop letting your weeks happen to you and start designing them strategically. So I want to make sure you have everything you need to succeed with this approach. I created a complete strategic week template that includes the full Sunday CEO session framework, worksheets for identifying your peak energy times, templates for outcome settings, and even sample weekly reviews so you can see what this looks like in practice. If you haven't already, you can grab it completely free at timeforliving.co/strategic week. And when you download it, you'll also get access to my private email community where I share even more strategies for creating time freedom without sacrificing your professional success. These are the concepts I usually only share with my private clients, but I want to make sure you have access to them too. Because I believe that every high-achieving woman deserves to feel in control of her time and energy. You deserve to feel excited about your week instead of dreading it. And you absolutely deserve to build a life that works for you instead of constantly feeling like you're running to catch up. So grab that template at timeforliving.co/strategic week. Commit to trying this approach for the next 4 weeks, not just one Sunday, but 4 Sundays in a row, and let me know how it goes. If you have any questions, email me at hello@timeforliving.co or send me a message on Instagram at timeforlivingco. I read every single one, and I love hearing from you. Remember, you're not just managing tasks, you're designing a life, and it starts with how you think about your week. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next week. Remember, you've got this, and every small step you take towards thinking strategically about your time is building the life you actually want to live. Hey friends, thank you so much for tuning in to the Time for Living podcast today. If this episode inspired you to take action and save time, I'd be so grateful if you could leave a written review and subscribe over on Apple Podcasts. Your feedback means the world to me and helps us reach even more amazing people like you. If you know a friend who needs to hear this message, share this episode with them. And remember, your time is precious, so make every moment count. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep living, and keep making time for what matters most.